In the mechanics of success, the most dangerous mistake is believing that what is hidden doesn't matter. Every product or service has an internal architecture that the customer may never consciously see: the back-end code, the structural integrity inside a wall, or the ethical sourcing of raw materials. If you cut corners in these invisible areas, you are saving money in the short term, but you are effectively writing a bug into the karma of your brand. This hidden defect creates a negative cause that eventually manifests as a visible effect, such as a sudden loss of trust or a systemic failure that seemingly comes out of nowhere. Conversely, an obsession with unseen quality creates a powerful brand karma. When you perfect the details that no one notices, you are building a foundation of absolute reliability. This consistency generates a gravitational pull that attracts loyalty without effort. Customers may not be able to explain why they trust you more than your competitors, but they can feel the cause through the effect of your excellence. In the logic of cause and effect, quality is not a marketing act. It is a spiritual deposit that ensures the long-term survival of everything people can see. In the rush for growth, many see a shortcut as a stroke of genius, but in the logic of cause and effect, every shortcut is actually a high-interest loan taken against your future. When you skip a step, whether it's a rigorous testing phase, a difficult conversation, or a legal requirement, you are getting the result today while deferring the cost. However, the interest on these shortcuts is paid back in the form of compromised stability, lost reputation, or systemic collapse exactly when you can least afford it. The fastest way is usually the most expensive because it lacks the structural integrity to support true scale. The only sustainable logic for building an empire is the principle that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. By taking the time to do things correctly the first time, you eliminate the friction of having to fix mistakes later. While others are busy patching holes in their crumbling foundations, the person who avoided shortcuts is moving with uninterrupted momentum. In the long game, speed is not about how fast you start, it's about how few times you have to stop and restart because you took a path that wasn't built to last. Most people view being good as a moral luxury, but at the highest levels of business, integrity is a cold, practical strategy. Each honest interaction and kept promise is a deposit into a trust account. While dark players who lie or manipulate often get a head start, they eventually hit a trust ceiling, a point where no one is willing to take a risk on them, effectively capping their growth. The person with a massive trust balance, however, has no ceiling. Because their word is a primary cause, they gain access to capital, partnerships, and opportunities that are locked away from the dishonest. This is the math of how integrity compounds into a fortress. Over time, your reputation begins to do the work for you, lowering the cost of every transaction, because trust eliminates the need for excessive legal barriers and monitoring. A high-integrity leader becomes a trusted node in the global network, attracting other high-value nodes. While the world is distracted by short-term wins, the practitioner of integrity is building an exponential asset. Eventually, the gap between the person with integrity and the person without it becomes so wide that no amount of cleverness can bridge it. Most people view being good as a moral luxury, but at the highest levels of business, integrity is a cold, practical strategy. Each honest interaction and kept promise is a deposit into a trust account. While dark players who lie or manipulate often get a head start, they eventually hit a trust ceiling, a point where no one is willing to take a risk on them, effectively capping their growth. The person with a massive trust balance, however, has no ceiling. Because their word is a primary cause, they gain access to capital, partnerships, and opportunities that are locked away from the dishonest. This is the math of how integrity compounds into a fortress. Over time, your reputation begins to do the work for you, lowering the cost of every transaction, because trust eliminates the need for excessive legal barriers and monitoring. A high-integrity leader becomes a trusted node in the global network, attracting other high-value nodes. While the world is distracted by short-term wins, the practitioner of integrity is building an exponential asset. Eventually, the gap between the person with integrity and the person without it becomes so wide that no amount of cleverness can bridge it. A leader often looks at a chaotic or dishonest team and wonders how things went wrong, but the mirror effect suggests that the cause is almost always found within the leader's own internal code. Your organization is not a separate entity, it is a giant high-definition mirror of your soul. If you value speed over accuracy, your team will be careless. If you are inconsistent with your word, your team will be unreliable. This is a fundamental law. You don't attract the people you want, you attract the people who are like you. To change the result, you must stop trying to fix the reflection and start fixing the source. When a leader upgrades their own discipline, integrity, and clarity, the team eventually shifts to match that new frequency. Those who don't align with the new code will naturally fall away, while those who do will thrive. Understanding the mirror effect turns every problem in your business into a diagnostic tool for your personal growth. If you want to see a different world, you have to show the mirror a different person. In a closed-minded worldview, giving looks like a simple drain on resources, a loss of time, money, or energy. But in an open causal system, giving creates a value vacuum. Think of it like a pump. By pushing value out into the market through over-delivery and generosity, you create a low-pressure zone that the surrounding environment is forced to fill. This is the algorithm of exchange. When you provide 10 times more value than you ask for in return, you create a massive demand for your presence and your work. This isn't about charity, it's about the physics of creating a value imbalance. By being the person who gives the most, you become the most essential node in the network. The market naturally rushes to reward those who solve the most problems and provide the most utility. If you find that you aren't receiving enough, the logic is simple. Check your output. When you master the art of strategic giving, you realize that the more you release, the more space you create for even larger opportunities to flow back into your life. The ultimate test of a leader is not how the system runs while they are present, but how it thrives after they are gone. Figures like Steve Jobs or Warren Buffett achieved immortality not through their physical presence, but by embedding their logic into the very DNA of their organizations. They moved beyond being managers who solve daily problems to becoming lawmakers who define the permanent principles of cause and effect for their empires. When the founder's core values are woven into the cultural habits of every employee, the system becomes self-correcting. It no longer needs a person to steer it because the code itself provides the direction. Building an eternal system requires the discipline to stop making every decision and start teaching the logic behind the decisions. If you only provide answers, the system dies with you. If you provide the causal framework, the system can evolve and survive in any environment. This is the final stage of the law of cause and effect. Shifting from being the first cause of every action to being the architect of a continuous cause that outlasts your own life. When the logic is sound, the empire is eternal.